Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1639A, and today's date is August 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Central Bankers Are Up to Something. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Daniel Amadori. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com or NewSentinel.com sites. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the sites. Or go to Steemit, that's steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the central bankers, they understand that their system, which they designed, does not last forever. There comes a point in time where their system needs to be reset, where they need to take what they have at this moment, create some type of an event, and make it seem like they needed to start a new system because of that event. And when I say event, it could be a war or something like that. Normally it's a war. And this time, they don't have that. And they know that their system is coming down. Now, what's very odd about all of this is they're doing a lot of different strange things. First, they're continuing the idea that migrants are needed in all of these countries. And you have to think to yourself, well, why do they need migrants? Well, Christine Lagarde came out. She's the head of the IMF. And she said that Spain must open its borders to more than 5 million migrants over the coming decades in order to fund the pension system. Now, what she's saying here is they need more people in the country so they can actually contribute to the pension system to keep it up and running. And normally what countries do is they bring in more and more people into their country to help the GDP numbers, to help the economy. Why would you need more and more individuals in a country where their unemployment rate, their youth unemployment rate, is at 34%? You have plenty of individuals that will go out and take jobs. Well, what happens is the central banking system, it has destroyed the job market. There are no longer these high-paying jobs. As we can see in many areas, wages are coming down. There are low-paying jobs, and usually the migrants that come in, they fill these jobs. This is why we're seeing high unemployment all over the globe right now. Because what is happening is there's no place for these highly educated individuals to go. They don't want to take those jobs. And this is why they're trying to bring in these migrants into all these different countries, because it will keep their system going a little bit longer. Remember, they thought that their system would be reset by now, or in the process of being reset. And they didn't care how long a war lasts or anything like that, because it reduces the population and it allows them to explain away why there are shortages, why you can't get certain items, and it allows them to reset the entire thing. Now, the entire economic system is completely falling apart right now. The debt level is reaching a point where it cannot be sustained. I know a lot of people think, oh, yes, they can sustain it. No, they can't. It's completely mathematically impossible. Yes, they can create more currency, but use common sense. If you have your household or you're an individual and you keep taking out credit cards and you're making $25,000 or $30,000 a year, and you take this credit card for $10,000, bring it up to the max. Take out this credit card, bring it up to the max. Take this credit card, bring it up to the max. And your interest rate is at 30%. You cannot sustain it. Now, if the interest rate drops, you can take out more debt. But there comes a point where you can't do this anymore. Governments around the world, they are running into this problem. And if we look at the debt problem, total household debt, and I'm not just talking about governments, I'm talking about everyday people also. They can't sustain the amount of debt. Remember, our entire system is designed by central bankers that designed it around debt. So total household debt it hit a new record high, rising by 82 billion to 13.29 trillion in the second quarter of 2018, 3.5% higher than a year earlier. I mean, this is not a good situation for the everyday person because salaries aren't moving up in the same way. Now, remember, in the beginning of the system back in the 70s, we had inflation. Salaries jumped. The housing prices jumped. Everything moved up because what was happening is they were creating a lot of currency. As they created currency, all of a sudden, there was inflation. The value of the dollar decreased. They were able to raise the interest rates, and they were able to control it a little bit in this fashion. And then came the 80s, where everything started to even out, and they were able to lower the interest rates a little bit, which pushed ahead the credit boom. And what we're seeing right now is that people with all this debt, they can't go out and they can't purchase, everyday items. It's getting very, very difficult. Because if you don't have a job where you're getting cost of living, if you don't have a job that is making more money than you were making before, if you have a part-time job or no job at all, you can't go out and purchase goods like you used to. This is why we see a complete breakdown of the retail sector. Now, the retail sales, they've come out, and thanks to a major downward revision, they saw July retail sales beat expectations by 0.5% month on month. Clothing, food service, and gas station sales jumped. Food service, gas stations, remember, the price of fuel went up. That is included in retail sales. So when you strip this away, did retail sales actually go up? Actually, it really didn't. And when you look at this, you can see that many of the areas, they are still having trouble. Now, U.S. industrial production rose about 0.1% month-to-month in July. It missed expectations after June's print was revised higher to a 1% month-to-month gain. Manufacturing production also slowed from 0.8% month-to-month in June to 0.3% month-to-month in July. And what's happening here is they're manipulating a lot of this data, and you see one month, it beat expectations, another month it come down quite a bit. And when you start to look at this, you can see that what we have here is not sustainable because we're seeing a lot more down months of U.S. production, industrial production, than we have months of upward movement. And we're starting to see this around the globe. We're starting to see this everywhere where these numbers actually don't make sense, and all they keep doing is revising them, manipulating them, removing things, adding things back to make it look like everything is working out. And what is happening here is the economy is really breaking down. Actually, the statistical numbers don't even match what is really happening in the economy. I mean, I'm getting people writing in from all different parts of the country, even Canada, saying that the real estate market is just like collapsing in their area. And they're saying that stores are leaving left and right, and malls are quite empty, that there's hardly any traffic in the stores. And no, all the sales are not going to Amazon. But what's very interesting about everything that's been happening is what is happening with the central bank and the banks. Now, we know they would love to go to a cashless system. And we know that they're very scared of people running to the banks or running to ATMs when the system comes down. And we know that the central bankers, sooner or later, they're going to try to bring the system down and control the narrative. And they're going to try to do it before Trump and the Patriots bring it down where they control the narrative. So we have that battle going on. Now, banks right now, they're curtailing cash services. The question is, why? In Australia, banks are reducing ATMs by about 8% a year. In the UK, ATMs, or cash point machines, as they're termed locally, are disappearing at a rate of around 300 per month, leaving consumers in rural areas struggling to access cash. Now, banks in Spain have closed around 40% of their branches over the past 10 years, and in Spain, they're also shutting down many of their ATMs. Now, in July, the UK's biggest ATM network, Link, began incrementally cutting the interchange fee for withdrawals from 25 pence down to 20 pence. Europe's ATM Industry Association warns that the move will prompt independent ATM operators to shutter around 20% of Link's fleet of about 55,000 free-to-use ATMs, making life even more difficult for the estimated 3 million Brits who depend on cash for almost all their day-to-day payments. Now, we're not just seeing this out in Europe. We're also seeing this in the US, and what's very interesting is that the FBI came out with a warning that hackers are poised to steal millions in minutes from ATM machines. And to me, what this seems like is that the central bank, the banks, they are preparing to shut down these machines. Now, if this does happen, and all of a sudden you hear in the corporate media that there are cyber attacks against ATM machines, they might make the case of why we don't need ATMs anymore and we should go to a cashless society. And remember, we talked about this quite a while ago, where they were talking about getting rid of cash. Now, this is different than cryptocurrencies. This is the central bank controlling their centralized fiat cash. Now, why would they want to do this? We talked about this before. When the collapse hits, they don't want people running to the ATM machines. They don't want these machines around. They don't want people running to the banks trying to get cash out. Actually, it's difficult from many, many people that have been writing in to get cash out. And I'm not talking about 200, 300, I'm talking about 5,000, 10,000 when you go into the banks. So if the system, as we can see, it is falling apart, once it collapses, what are people going to do? They're going to run to the banking system. They're going to run to the ATMs. They're going to run to the banks. They're going to try to get cash out. Well, if you run to the banks inside where the tellers are, it's very easy for them to say, listen, you're not taking the cash out. ATMs, well, you got to get rid of them. Because beforehand, when people hear things are happening, people are going to run to them. Yes, you can electronically shut them down, but you would have to do this to every single machine. To move us into a cashless society, you start getting rid of everything where people have access to that has to do with cash. And it looks like this is what the central bankers are up to. And with this story about the FBI warning of a cyber attack on ATM machines, not just here in the US, but globally, well, it tells us that they are pushing a certain agenda, because it's very odd that they're shutting down many, many ATMs in UK, in Spain, in many countries. And all of a sudden, we're getting a warning of a cyber attack. So the central bankers, it looks like they're preparing and trying to move us away from cash into their digital fiat system. And again, this is different than cryptocurrency, where that's a digital currency. Completely different, because the central banks do not control that. They do control this, and it's centralized. We know it makes it easier for them to control a digital currency than people having cash. So if the system comes down, it's very easy for them to lock everyone out of the entire system if it's all digital. And you can't do anything with it. So it looks like this could be one of their final moves before they push forward with their agenda. So everyone needs to be prepared and ready for what is coming, because we're getting a lot of strange information coming out of the central bank, out of the banking system, out of the IMF, letting us know that this system can't continue on the way it is, and certain things need to happen. And we know that they never expected it to go this long, because they thought they were going to have some type of an event. So we see that things are definitely happening right now. And like I've said before, be prepared. Have cash on hand. Have supplies. Because we will be going through a transition one way or another to get out of this central banking system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. be well, be safe, and especially be prepared.